Hello out there. Welcome to Ecology and Me bonus round. I'm Kate Douglas, and we're back with arborist Ashleigh Cibelli-Pettus. We spoke to Ashleigh about why leaves change color in the fall, but there was so much more to talk about. So let's dive right in. First up, what is something trees have taught you in your life and work?
Trees have taught me a number of things, but what is really has taught me is just kind of patience. Working with city trees, they get transplanted and they get planted, and then they have to get used to the initial shock of being in a new environment. And they, start to develop root systems, and it takes time for them to develop and mature. I always say, a newly planted tree is great, but what's really great is that newly planted tree 20 years from now. When getting into this business, that's what I've kind of learned. It takes time to develop and grow, just like us, I literally talk to my wife about this all the time. We live in a society of instant gratification. And we kind of forget to, take a step back and kind of just be patient, and kind of wait. The world is not going to work second to second. It's going to work, as it goes.
Okay, our first question comes from Sam in LA.
I want to know about fruit trees. I'm thinking about citrus. When the citrus falls from the tree, it very quickly, becomes rotten. But if it stays on the tree, it can stay on the tree and be just fine for quite a long time. And I wonder why that is, or if that's true.
So that just kind of brings you back down to the basics of tree biology and how a tree feeds itself. It's making sugar from the leaves, and that sugar is going to that fruit. So once that fruit is not attached, there's no way to feed it, or there's no way to keep it alive, right? So that's why they just they deteriorate.
Our next question comes from Ty in New York.
Do trees get sad?
Yeah, I would say trees get sad, have you ever had a plant that hasn't been watered? It looks sad, right? And then you put some water in it and then it perks right back up. So, that is my impression of a tree getting sad. When it's missing something that it needs. Trees are just like us. Trees need 5 things to live. We need those 5 things to live. We need light, air, water, a good temperature, and nutrients. Those are the things we need. And then that's what things that trees need. So it's very, very simple. So if you're lacking one of those things, you're not going to feel the best.
And here's another question from Ty.
Do trees have intergenerational trauma?
So when you say something like that, that makes me think about different pests that affect trees. So after years of harm for a tree from a particular pest, that tree will start to develop resistance to that pest. And then after those years, after that particular tree developed resistance to that pest, and then it has baby trees, and then it spreads its seeds, those trees will also be resistant to that pest. So absolutely, right now, one of the really big pests that is affecting a lot of our ash trees is the emerald ash borer. And this is it's a really tiny bug. It's actually pretty beautiful. It's purple and green and emeraldy, but it basically eats the transportation system of the sugar inside of a tree. And there have been studies of stands of ash trees where it has decimated acreages of ash trees, but there's a few that has develop a resistance to this and can live a little longer. So yeah, I think in that term, absolutely.
Okay, one final question from Jason in New York.
So my question is, what makes a leaf different from another?
So we talked about how a tree gets food, it gets it from its leaves, right? So different trees from different areas have adapted their leaves to the sun in that area. And there are 2 different types of leaves that you can encounter. You can have a simple leaf. So that is basically, think of a maple tree, right? Where your leaf starts, your bud starts, and it has that kind of maple, that one maple leaf, right? And then you have another type like honey locusts, right? And those are a compound leaf. So there are multiple leaflets on one leaf. Sometimes that can get confusing because, people will look at a leaf and say oh, there's multiple leaves on it. But you always remember, always just tell yourself where your bud starts, that's where your leaf starts, right? So you have to look back down to where your bud, so you can have a simple or compound leaf, right? And when you look at a tree, you notice the top of the tree, the leaves are a lot smaller than the bottom of the tree because the sun, that's getting direct sun from the top. The bottom leaves, they're like, I need to be bigger because I need more sun. So they will grow bigger because they want more sun, right? So it's really just about the easiest and most effective way to get more sunlight to provide more food for the tree. And in terms of different shapes and sizes and things like that, it probably goes way, way back to like where it started and what was available in that area. And, whatever was available in that area, that's how that leaf grew. Leaf ID is one of the puzzle pieces of tree identification. Before I even got into arboriculture or like just like tree stuff, you just look at a tree, you're like, oh, they all look the same, they all have green leaves and things like that, until you really look into it. And this is another thing that in the summertime, I have a youth internship where I hire like 10 to 15 high schoolers, usually inner city kids too, they see trees, but really don't see trees, right? So when I introduce them to the world of tree identification and kind of break it down into like, trees are these pieces of puzzles, and you kind of just take a part and then put it together. And there's like the amazement that they get from this. They're like, I just thought it was green leaves everywhere, and then when they start to put a correlation, different leaves and then different tree species, and then they start to learn like, wow, this tree, it needs me. They get that connection, once they start knowing the names, they're like, Ash, this oak tree over here, it's suffering. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, let's take care of it.
Yes, let's take care of the oaks and the rest of our tree friends with Ashleigh. Okay, thank you for being here, listeners. You're amazing. You keep me going. I'm Kate Douglas. Keep asking questions.